and I'm not going to tell you more because it's going to be fantastic. So, James, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm not going to keep you long, don't worry, I'm sure there's lots of drink waiting for us. I've got to say, I have an unenviable task in two ways. First of all, I do this crazy thing that I agree every year to round up 55 speakers over 7 hours and 10 minutes, which I've been squirreling away at the front here, and I will do my very best. And second of all, Jennifer didn't mention at all that I'd be following one of the best speakers that's ever been at GRIF. But it was an amazing warm-up act, so thank you, Marco. But top takeaways from the day 2 of GRIF. First of all, I think what really struck me, and we see this over and over again, it's a continuing trend in our sector, the difference and the continued divergence of the two trends of convenience on one hand and experience on the other. And I think, honestly, if you think about that filter and the way that you're developing your concepts, and if you think about the filter, when you think about all of what we've heard today, there's actually this continuation in this way, right? People are either looking for this absolute indulgence, amazing experience on one hand, or they're looking for food for fuel on the other, and they're becoming more and more aimed towards health, nutrition, and much more about making sure that they're well and ensuring their own wellness. But these things keep going further and further apart. It's actually really, really interesting. I think what's really struck me earlier, we heard about the whole novelty piece and whether something's a trend or whether something's novelty. We heard that food is not enough, and actually that came through again thick and fast with what Marco was saying, right? I think what really struck me a few weeks ago, I sat in a restaurant in London that was queuing around the corner for 3 months. I'm not going to name it. It's a Chinese concept or a Taiwanese concept that came to London. And I sat there and thought, Christ, this is really, really poor. And I watched the robot thing today that we got earlier on today. And I thought, do you know what? Like, actually, in terms of the process that you go through within convenience-based locations, often, the robot piece is as much as you're going to get from poor staff, frankly. And I think it's fascinating that what we will continue to see is this divergence. And I think what is really important for us to do is understand when it comes to technology, and that's my next point, is the whole piece around technology. Do I think this is the future of food? Technology? Yes, of course it's going to be part of our future. Do I think we're going to end up in a position where you're going to be plugging in to a kind of Star Trek style creator of food? We'll probably end up in that respect in terms of convenience, right? But underneath it all, food and dining out with other people is absolutely centric to us as human beings, right? I think most people would agree with that in this room. I think the idea we're in an absolutely lucky position, whilst the rest of the sectors are declining, we're going to become more and more automated, and actually more time that people spend on phones, the more time that people are connecting digitally, it creates a need inside of us for individual and personal connection. And I think it is where our sector will continue to thrive. And of course, because we are an absolute basic need of humans to eat. I think both parts of this, convenience and experience, are going to come through thick and fast. I think what we also saw was examples of surge pricing coming through. Do you know what? Maybe a bit gimmicky, but we'll see what happens there. The idea of payments, this idea of taking away pain points in restaurants, technology is going to solve, right? I think we can get that. In terms of pain points in restaurants, in terms of back of house of restaurants, and in terms of providing us data to make an experience better, it feels to me that every time we come here year on year, that we're seeing this becoming more and more important to us. I think that's going to be where we see technology really come to the forefront. Ultimately, we're a people business, and that's going to stay. I think what's very fascinating is that we saw a really great case study earlier about how people can be really, really supported by technology with McDonald's and the way that they were driving their drive-through, were leveraging and increasing and enhancing their drive-through operation through data and through use of voice. And I think the voice thing's coming thick and fast. The other thing, the kind of thing that links in with this, to me, is the point around experiential leisure. So we're looking at technology has created a scenario where we can create concepts that we would never have created before, and therefore also creating alternative formats. What we've seen is a lowering of the threshold of how you enter restaurants and how you enter the restaurant business. We are looking at food halls, shared spaces, shared workspaces, dark kitchens, membership clubs, street food, kiosk operations, subscription, delivery, like it goes on and on and on. In lots of ways, it's never been tougher to be in the room here right now, yeah? In lots of ways, you could say the reverse. There's lots more ways to make money, but actually it's tougher to make every single pound, euro, dollar, whatever currency you're making, it's tougher. I think what's fascinating for me is that the dark kitchen phenomena is being seen as being this way of overcoming a convenience piece. My worry is, though, that whilst we can sit here and say, well, cloud kitchens and dark kitchens are going to be our saviors, it's a low cost of entry, we're also giving our entire intellectual property to technology companies. And I think we need to be really careful with this. One of the biggest in Europe is already running their own kitchens, already running their own restaurants. I mean, what we're doing very, very willingly as a sector is walking blindly into partnerships where those partners are potentially going to become your competitors. The drive to all of these alternative formats, it strikes me, isn't necessarily the access to entrepreneurs, isn't necessarily all of the really positive things either. I think we've actually sat in a position for a long time where we've been very driven by retail and retail spaces and landlords. We've had lots of people present today who are from a background of property. And I think that it's this, right? It's empty mall spaces. It's decreasing retail. It's this continuing increase in developments that means that actually we're putting more and more F&B out there. We heard earlier that it's 10% of around 10% of big mall complexes. 10% is rubbish. I'm working on lots of projects right now where it's getting to 30, 40, 50%. With leisure, with experiential leisure, it's 60%. I think the idea of filling spaces is increasingly where the drive will come from. I think it's important that as restaurateurs that we take all of the information, take stock, listen to the advice we've been given on all of those other pieces, and make sure that our growth is at our own rate and at a rate that's sustainable. If you want to see where the problems have come in the UK, I can assure you, I've worked with lots of them, some really high-profile people. The problems have come because of saturation, because of people scaling too quickly. They've come because actually we can't train people quick enough because you're developing out. I think that links quite nicely onto the team piece that we'll talk about in a little while. It's interesting that we're seeing a kind of continuation alongside all of this piece of around different concepts and restaurants where we just get rebrands of the same thing. I think the creativity piece is actually fascinating. I really love the bits here where we hear from new concepts. But I think that it's also vital that those new concepts don't run straight into private equity hands either. I think there's PE firms and there's investors in the room here. And actually, I think Robin made a great point of that earlier. Make sure you pick wisely. Make sure that you're spending the right time speaking to the right people and making sure that you get the support you need, not just somebody that wants you to roll quickly. We also heard a lot today about the globalization aspect and how you can achieve that. I think in the past, franchise was seen as being the main model that you could grow with. Of course, you can go and manage yourself. But I think that we're seeing an increase in managed franchise, the franchise type scenario, and we're seeing increases in licensing from high end. Fascinating to me more than anything is listening to people talking in this room and talking out there, talking on the tours, and it's from 45 countries. I think that's what Jennifer and the team here at GRIF do remarkably well, is bring a community of people together. And it is a growing community, and it's fabulous to be part of it. So you can learn from each other and really learn from the mistakes and from the successes of other people. If it's one thing that strikes me, having visited 21 countries last year relating to work, the problems we face are the same across the world. Honestly, for the most part, the things that we see as problems and challenges don't change. I think the opportunities can be different place to place, and the cyclical trends, the things that are kind of very local, change, but the secular trends do not. We're seeing veganism come through thick and fast. We're seeing people decrease the use of plastic. We're seeing people understand more around sustainability and wanting to be better in terms of the planet. We're also seeing a growing importance alongside that globalization of people wanting local, right? People wanting community, people wanting to know where their food comes from, people wanting to know who's serving them, people really wanting to connect with other people. And as we move forward as a sector, that's going to be increasingly the case. And it's a real challenge for us. How do we grow a business globally or across multiple cities and create a feeling inside where you can pull together and create a community? I think, though, that you can think of this community aspect in lots of different ways. I think it's within an industry. We're a remarkably open industry. It's one of the things I think that I love the most about what we do. It's within our franchise groups. It's within our own towns, cities, or countries. It's about building communities so you can share and learn from them. And it's also about customers really being on your doorstep. Even from the Michelin star chefs we had here earlier, it surprised me a lot that they said, it's not about our hotel guests. Actually, it's not even about the tourists. It's as important to us to get local people coming here. And that's a really intrinsic part of how we create what we do. When we think of those communities and we think of our diversified customers, you can think every way. I mean, we've had people here today saying that we should think about our mature customers, right? That was the first thing we heard. Then we heard about Generation Y. Then we heard about Generation Z. The poor Gen Xers. Where are the Gen Xers? Do they not dine? Are they living like hermits at home? I'm unsure. But we never hear about Gen Xers, right? Oh, you're here. There we go. I can't see beyond you, otherwise there may well be a whole flood of Gen Xers in the audience. I do apologize. But one thing I would suggest and really work to is think about occasions, thinking about why people are coming to your outlets. Think about why people will get up and go. And I think it's one of the things often we do is we put people in these boxes, Gen Y, Gen Z, mature, young, kids, whatever. Well, actually, is it because they're going out on a date? Is it because they're going out because it's they want to go to a go-to place? Do they want to relax? Is this a meal replacement rather than eating at home? Get to know the reasons people come and group by reasons rather than just by these generation types that we keep hearing over and over. It's definitely a struggle, isn't it, getting the right staff? The team piece is amongst the biggest challenges everywhere. Honestly, the 21 countries, if it's one thing I can look through my notebook from last year and see, it's people don't see hospitality as a career. Even the places that people traditionally saw hospitality as a career are saying that people don't see hospitality as a career anymore. We need to work together as a sector. We need to make sure that actually we're really leveraging our relationships and the people we've got working for us. The irony, of course, is that we're one of the biggest employers of students everywhere in the world. And actually, my question and my challenge to you is, do you engage those people and truly tell them about the opportunities that hospitality has to offer? We heard it lots and lots today that it's the problem. We didn't hear lots of solutions. I think we have to think individually, are we promoting hospitality first in the way we recruit, and then our business second? We all have to take a responsibility in doing it. I think we also need to take a responsibility that we do have fair kitchens, the guys talked about earlier. It's not just fair kitchens, it's about fairness all round, right? I think that it's about growing this eating out of the home, with the growing eating out of the home occasions. This is not going to come to an end any time in the short period. And I said it last year and I'll say it again. One thing I do think we need to remember, though, is this will be a mid-term pinch point. Do we think that we're going to have a long-term issue in terms of employment and hospitality? I think you could sit and say, yes, we are. But I think given the automation in all the other sectors and the decreasing requirement of humans, of people, I think we're going to see a long-term opportunity. What we do need to do, though, is position ourselves effectively to do that and to run with it. It really struck me today that the idea of story came out over and over again. The sense of story for your team, as humans, we seek this story, right? Every story needs characters, we were told. You need to tell your story, you need to own it. Marco said to be honest. He was talking about that desire not to live a lie. And I think that within our own development and the way that we build our brands, it's vital to make sure that we do that. We're about to become far more informed as consumers. We understand our impact on the environment from food. And I think that it's important, it's vital that we really, really embrace that sense of authenticity in everything we do. A couple of further tips, and they were kind of inadvertently through Marco. But the first one is, I think it's very easy to get sidetracked by your competitors. He said he doesn't go and dine at other restaurants. I heard from an Olympic rower that's one of the best, said eyes in the boat, right? When Olympic teams don't win at rowing, it's because they're too worried about what the other boats are doing. Eyes in the boat, concentrate on what you're doing. Yes, you've got to understand your competitors, but keep your eyes in the boat and keep going. And the next one is that actually, whilst passion's really massive in our sector, and we saw lots of it on stage today, do you know what? Passion is not enough. You do have to make a return. It is a business, and it's got to be profitable. So let's make sure we go out there, we're passionate in what we do, but we are driving the bottom line. What does not help our industry at all is people continuing to drag themselves along in a position where they're not making decent money, because fundamentally it results in pulling the whole of the industry down. Lots and lots to learn from today. Can't wait for tomorrow. Thank you so much for staying till the end. Jennifer's going to give you a little overview of what's happening next.